Just remember the stuff presented by this creepy bear is from the Evolution 101 website, written by the Understanding Evolution team. Commentary by Rentafriend2000, that's me!
Descent with modification. We've defined evolution as descent with modification from a common ancestor, but exactly what has been modified? Evolution only occurs when there is a change in gene frequency within a population over time. These genetic differences are heritable and can be passed on to the next generation, which is what really matters in evolution. Long-term change.
Wow, they should have proofread this one. They've just said a change in gene frequency is heritable. How are we going to pass on a percentage to the next generation? They've got 1,000 metric tons of PhDs and can't muster the skills to pass freshman English. Come on, Understanding Evolution team, get on the ball! And the MLA handbook. They've got the last part right. Long-term change is what matters, but their definition is still paper thin and an inch tall. A change in gene frequency is not good enough. It needs to be an increase in genetic information, not merely a change in the frequency of genetic information which is already there. Having more or less of the same genes doesn't turn bacteria into cabbages and wolves. This is like saying, hey, I know where this candy bar originated. I can prove that this chocolate bar came from a gum recipe because I found a label on one that says now 20% bigger. Which is delicious, but nonsensical. Whee! Also, I know America has forgotten this, but change can mean decay or other forms of getting worse. If enough of the right genes go away, the species dies. Extinction is not evolution, even if they do appear on the same page of the glossary in the back of the book.
Compare these two examples of change in beetle populations. Which one is an example of evolution? 1. Beetles on a diet. Imagine a year or two of drought in which there are few plants that these beetles can eat. All the beetles have the same chances of survival and reproduction, but because of food restrictions, the beetles in the population are a little smaller than the preceding generation of beetles. 2. Beetles of a different color. Most of the beetles in the population, say 90%, have the genes for bright green coloration, and a few of them, 10%, have a gene that makes them more brown. Some number of generations later, things have changed. Brown beetles are more common than they used to be and make up 70% of the population. Which example illustrates descent with modification, a change in gene frequency over time?
Before we answer, I'd like to point out that these are two different questions. 1. Is there descent with modification? 2. Is there a change in gene frequency over time? But they are acting as if those are the same question, as if descent with modification is a change in gene frequency. Hang on, let me see what they said at the start of the post. Let's see. Evolution only occurs when there is a change in gene frequency within a population over time. And if I go back to chapter 1, I see they said, biological evolution, simply put, is descent with modification. See, now they've said descent with modification is a change in gene frequency. So, if evolution is descent with modification, and a change in gene frequency is descent with modification, then they've just started this chapter by saying evolution only occurs when evolution occurs. Can you see why I objected to their weak sauce definition for the word evolution? I think we need to go back to the candy store. Woohoo! Chocolate! Oh, I mean, science. Candy store example number 1. Imagine we have two kinds of chocolate bars, regular and crispy. We start the day with 100 of each. Because everyone knows that the regular ones are fool's gold, they all buy the crispy ones, and not as many regular types. At the end of the day, you have 88 regular bars and only 6 crispy ones. Candy store example number 2. Every time we make a new batch of chocolate bars, we toss in something new. Mint, marshmallow, crunchy frog, etc. This would be descent with modification, because each generation is a little different than the previous. We are modifying each descending generation. See how that makes sense? It occurs to me that neither of the above examples were like this. Example number 1 above, beetles on a diet, would be more akin to starting with the regular and crunch bars and then making smaller, fun-size bars. So, same recipes, but different sizes. And if I may digress for a moment, who decided that less chocolate was fun? Yeah, I think Mr. Wonka needs to find that guy and make his paycheck fun-sized. How about we bum me out with an extra 8 pounds of fudge over here, huh? Which of these processes explain the origin of the Whipple Scrumptious Fudge Mallow Delight? I think it's obvious that you can have a sales day like in candy store example number 1 for 1,000 years, and you'll never have anything but the 2 bars you started with. Even if you follow the trend until you stop selling plain old chocolate bars altogether, you still won't have anything new to sell with this procedure. And in their beetles on a diet example, the bars got all fun-sized because we were running low on sugar, not because the recipe changed. Once the Tuesday shipments get here, fun size goes away until we run out of sugar again. That'll never get us anything but different sizes of the same 2 chocolate bars. The team here seems not to notice that in order to turn a regular chocolate bar into a Whipple Scrumptious Fudge Mallow Delight, you have to make some changes to the recipe. It's a good thing the Understanding Evolution team had other things to fall back on when their candy business flopped. Yes, there is descent in the beetles above, as we're told some generations have passed. But there is no modification. The original population had green and brown beetles, and now the present generation has green and brown beetles. Nothing has been modified. Is it me? Is this harder to see than I think it is? Because to me, green and brown beetles, giving rise to green and brown beetles, seems like a non-event. You can't sell many tickets to a show like this. Gaze in astonishment as green and brown beetles are transformed before your very eyes into brown and green beetles! As for a change in gene frequency, certainly it seems that occurred, but what of it? The point of evolution is not to tell us how many people bought a new product, but where the product came from in the first place. Evolution is not about marketing, it's about engineering. The process by which a majority go from green to brown can never tell us why there are beetles in the first place, or even why they are green or brown in the first place. This bit is no better than a straw man or a smokescreen. How about a little fire, Scarecrow? See, because there's smoke and a straw man, and... never mind.
The difference in weight in example 1 came about because of environmental influences, the low food supply, not because of a change in the frequency of genes.
Just wait. In a second, they will try and tell you that getting stepped on is a cause of evolutionary change. Am I amiss in suggesting that getting stepped on is an environmental influence which, it could be argued, is not as big a player in the development of new life forms as food supply? At this point, it just seems like they're being sloppy.
Therefore, example 1 is not evolution. Because the small body size in this population was not genetically determined, this generation of small-bodied beetles will produce beetles that will grow to normal size if they have a normal food supply. The changing color in example 2 is definitely evolution. These 2 generations of the same population are genetically different. But how did it happen?
This is simply false. They had the genes for green and brown in generation 1, and the final generation also has the genes for green and brown. They are not genetically different, they are statistically different. A careless pedestrian could step on a bunch of brown ones, and the population would evolve back to where it started. No new information has been gained. No new features or behaviors exist. They've no more evolved than if most of them decided to start wearing fedoras. Which would be pretty awesome. Join me next week for Part 9! Whee! Thanks for liking and subscribing and for sharing this on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Google+, and any other way you can. Thanks for any comments or emails you care to send. And thanks for letting me be your rental friend. Hey!